afternoon. My name is T.R. Scott, and I am interviewing with Becky Martin. It is Tuesday, November 23rd, 2010, and we are in Gill Center at McDaniel College. So first, Coach, the first question I have for you is, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Carroll County. I am what is affectionately known as a townie.
Nice. And tell me, how long have you lived in Carroll County?
I'm not going to give you the actual number of years because that would be a dead giveaway to my age, since I've lived in Carroll County my entire life. So as I said, I've lived and grew up in Westminster my entire life.
But for more than 10 years?
More than 10 years, more than 29, more than 35, but I'm not retiring yet.
I hear you, Coach.
A few decades.
And tell me about what the area was like when you were a kid.
It was very rural. Westminster has grown considerably in the last 30 years or so, especially with the advent of Route 795 that came into Carroll County, which was the bridge to basically to Baltimore. It was, and now I guess when 795 was brought into Carroll County, also Route 140. And then we ended up with a bypass of Westminster. So Westminster was a very small town of maybe 10,000 people when I was growing up.
Wow. And you are a long-time resident, so would you say, you just said that the town was very much rural back then, so would you consider it to be urban now, more urbanized? Certainly
more urban than it was 30 years ago. When I was growing up, you could ride your bike from one end of town to the other. It was safe. It was grassroots America, typical textbook type of setting. You would, take ride your bike maybe 5-10 minutes outside of Westminster, and you were in the rolling hills of Carroll County, farmland.
Wow, interesting. Well, I hear you say, talk about riding a bike. I've interviewed with some longtime Carroll County residents who said that they remember riding their horse. Do you have any stories like that?
No. Since I lived in the city of Westminster, I did not have a horse. I was considered a city girl since I lived in Westminster. But no, I am familiar with riding horses. I have ridden a horse on a few occasions. And I can even say I have ridden a cow.
Really?
Yes, not very long, not very successful. It was more of a prank than anything, and not very comfortable, but I can say for at least 30 seconds I rode a cow.
Wow. And was that during some event here in Westminster?
No, that was visiting friends who are very close friends of our family growing up, who were farmers in Carroll County, who ran a very successful dairy farm. So part of my growing up experiences and fond memories were being able to go and visit family friends who lived on a farm and experience that type of connection.
That's interesting. So tell me, what did your family do for entertainment during those years, let's say 30 years ago in Carroll?
Well, at that point we're certainly talking, there's a difference just from the age of technology. Yeah. Primarily for entertainment, it was, did you go to a movie, watch television? But a lot of the entertainment was, again, you're talking about grassroots America. Socially, it was around family and friends, going to visit someone on a weekend. Visiting while the children played. The parents would, again, socialize and talk. And then there might be, culminating event of dessert, at the end of the evening, ice cream and cookies, something like that. Somebody would bake a cake. So again, a lot of the entertainment at that point had to do with socializing with friends and neighbors.
Makes sense. So you talked about the movie theaters. Do you remember you and your friends meeting up to go to a specific theater here in Carroll County?
Yes. It was a Carroll County Theater. It was the Carroll Theater, which is now part of the Carroll County Arts program down in Westminster. It was transformed years ago. Again, with the urbanization came shopping malls, came theaters. Instead of one theater, you had a conglomerate of 5 and 6 theaters. So when I was growing up, it was the Carroll Theater on, downtown Westminster. I can't say that I went a lot because it costs money. So it was a special occasion to go to a theater. And if there was something big, maybe the family, maybe they would head into Baltimore to go to one of the the Senator, to see a big film.
Wow. Your family would travel to Baltimore before the run?
From a culture perspective, yes. If there was something, a play or something taking place, yes, they'd go to Baltimore, go to New York to see a Broadway production.
Cool.
So.
Do you remember any specific movie that you went to go see at that Carroll Center?
Downtown, I remember when my parents took me to see The Sound of Music years ago, downtown Baltimore. And we used to go there shopping. That used to be a big deal at Thanksgiving, big holidays, to go downtown Lexington Market, down where Hutzler's. This is even before your time. Some of the big department stores were downtown Baltimore. So the country folks would go down to the city for an afternoon and an evening.
Great. So getting back to Carroll County, what changes have you seen in this county specifically over the years?
An influx of more and more people, more families, an influx of more commercialization. One of the things that we've lost over the years, there were a lot of privately owned businesses, and with the commercialization and with the big chains, you see them moving into the smaller rural areas. So there's fewer family businesses, local businesses, less farmland, more houses, more people, more schools, everything that goes with a larger population.
Yep. Great.
Which is good and bad. Depends on your perspective.
And what's your perspective?
Well, my perspective is, certainly from a cultural perspective, you want to see an area grow and prosper. And it's neat that more people have chosen to move into Carroll County, and most of the time they're moving here because they think it's a better place to raise families, which is a compliment. But with that, when everybody wants that opportunity, when there are more people, then there are more opportunities for disagreement, different perspectives, and change. And change isn't always viewed as positive.
That's true. And so now tell me one place in Carroll County that you can think of that used to be here but is no longer here as a result of this urban development.
Well, again, I would say a lot of the older family businesses that were downtown are no longer present because of the urbanization, because of the number of strip malls, shopping centers that are now part of the culture and part of this area.
Can you think of one, maybe a name of a specific store that's no longer around?
There used to be a store on Main Street that was probably here for 60 years or more. It was called Mathers. It was a little department store, and somebody, if you've spoken to many people in Westminster, they probably have brought the name of that store up, Mathers.
Yes, they have.
It was a family business.
They had. And what experience did you have with rural Carroll County life before the urbanization, like in general, or you can go specific to talk about just the differences in your lifestyle then versus now?
Well, I think part of the difference, and I'm not sure it's necessarily due to the urbanization, but just time. It was a slower time. But I think that, depending upon whether you live in a place like Westminster or Baltimore or New York City, just because of the globalization, there's less time. There's less free time. It's a faster pace. I think some of the things that I miss, and I'm not sure if there's a correlation because I'm just, you grow up. But, again, as Westminster and Carroll County has grown, and with more people, there's more anonymity. There's less, I think, neighborhood involvement than there used to be. when I was growing up, again, I didn't venture too far from the house because of, my parents, just from a safety issue, but Westminster was safer. It was an opportunity where no matter where you went, you knew somebody, and they would look out for you, or they would know that you're the daughter of Paul and Dorothy Martin, so you better behave yourself. Which today, because of, I think there are more people, there's not a sense of as much neighborhood or knowing their neighbor, or even maybe caring to know their neighbor. I was very fortunate to grow up in a neighborhood where my family and the neighbors lived side by side for over 50 years. So it was an extended family. It just wasn't a neighbor.
That is good. That's good information. So can you tell me what work positions you've held since you've lived in Carroll County?
Well, my entire professional career, I've worked at McDaniel College, but again, growing up, and this is typical of grassroots America, when I was growing up, I mowed lawns. I mowed lawns in the neighborhood to get some extra money. I also worked at the treat shop, which was the local candy store, during the part-time during high school and college. I did that over the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter.
Nice.
I also worked, throughout college. I worked at McDaniel, Western Maryland. At the time, I was a lifeguard during the summers. One of the few people who could say they lifeguarded the entire summer and didn't have a tan because it was an indoor pool. Had to try to convince people, yes, I am a lifeguard. Yes, that is my job. Where's your tan? It's an enclosed pool. The summer before my freshman year at Western Maryland College, I worked at a local insurance agency. Again, at that point, I wasn't sure what career path I wanted to choose, and business was one of those possibilities. And fortunately, some very good friends of my family owned the business and made a position for me to work during the summer. And it was a very valuable experience, but one of the things it taught me is I couldn't be cooped up inside. So I have had limited work experience in terms of varied professions since I've been at McDaniel for over 30 years.
You found your niche?
Found my niche.
So were the treat shop and the insurance company, were they local family
businesses?
Yes,
they were local family businesses. Again, a friend of the owner of the treat shop at the time, our neighbor, worked there because they were good friends, and they worked to help out during busy times. For a candy store, the busy times would be Christmas and Easter.
Okay.
And as I grew up, my mother was also asked if she wanted to work, and she worked a little bit. And then when I was finally of age and old enough and responsible enough to not eat all the profits, I was also brought into the business and continued to work there throughout high school and college. Nice.
And are those businesses still around today?
The treat shop is still around.
Great.
And so is the insurance agency. They've been able to weather the storm, so to speak, and remain competitive in their field.
That's excellent. It's good to hear. So tell me about what your experiences in those jobs that you held, what they've been like. Do you have anything to compare them with outside of Carroll County? Any experiences, work experiences?
No, not really.
Okay.
Other than from the standpoint of my work now takes me certainly outside of Carroll County.
Right.
Internationally, I've been fortunate enough to travel the world in many respects. I've been to Australia because of my job. I take our team every 4 years and we travel to France. So from an international perspective, given my job, I've had the opportunity to travel, which is, again, very rewarding and very educational. in many respects, at a personal level and also a professional level. So even from little old Carroll County in Westminster, you can be well-traveled, well-informed, well-educated.
And what has your travels taught you about your community, if it has taught you anything?
Well, again, I cherish my memories as a child growing up in Westminster, lifelong friendships, because of, you grew up in a similar experience. From a cultural perspective, one of the things that, as I've traveled internationally, there are still basic innate, priorities that are, global,
Common.
which are common, which basically are, people care about family, health, happiness, and again, from a spiritual perspective. So again, it doesn't matter whether you're in Carroll County, whether you're in Baltimore, whether you're in a different country. There are certain basic elements that are common pretty much to all in many respects. Food might taste a little different, and some of the, some things certainly culturally are different, but those are the basic elements.
Gotcha. And so you've discussed some of the changes, how it's more people and
Mm-hmm.
less familiar.
Mm-hmm.
But can you describe how the social climate in Carroll County has changed as the populations have become more diverse? Or would you say?
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head. It's become more diverse, and again, part of that had to do with just the ability of people to move, from transportation, from the ability to, find work. Our area has become more diverse, not as diverse as a lot of people would like it to become, but it has changed, and in many respects, in a good way. But as I said earlier on, for some people, change isn't always, people go kicking and screaming because they like familiarity, and change means pushing the envelope in difference. But no, again, one of the things, as there are more people coming into Carroll County, or you're dealing with more people, there's more ability for diversity. And with diversity comes difference in opinion, difference in ideas, difference in backgrounds. And it's not a right or wrong, it's just different. And again, a lot of times people are scared of different until different becomes familiar.
Gotcha. You put it in a great way. Can you recall any major national events that have occurred while you have been a Carroll County resident?
Well, from the standpoint of major national events that happened in Westminster, or just national events that, well, certainly growing up, because of television, because of newspaper, because of all those forms of medium, some of the great events that happened throughout history during my lifetime. I recall, where were you when Kennedy was killed? Where were you when Martin Luther King was killed? Where were you when the shuttle exploded? Where were you when 9/11? Yes, certainly I remember those things.
Can you describe the atmosphere in Carroll County during one of those significant national events?
Well, again, when there's a tragedy that affects the nation, it's something that you feel from the standpoint of the family, the community, whether it's a sense of mourning, whatever. I can recall, again, there was a somberness when Kennedy was killed, the nation's president. I recall that from the standpoint of the way my parents acted, and I was a young child, very young, okay, very, very young.
Gotcha.
And I remember them talking about it and the significance of it. All these, it's unfortunate because the events that I just spoke about were all tragedies. there are also a lot of positive things that you recall throughout, history, but I guess because they were events that affected you to the core at the time. And again, there was no different here than any place else in terms of feeling the deep sadness and how it affects a family or a neighborhood, the community, the churches, your church community.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, because as I recall what happened 9/11, it felt to me the most significant thing that stuck out in my mind was how everybody was able to come together. Like, it seemed like everyone put aside their differences and came together, and for a moment we forgot that we were different. And that's one thing that sticks out. So I think you make a great point about how people just feel like they need to, put aside differences and come together.
Again, it goes back to one of those basic elements of survival, and people look around and realize there are more common, commonalities than differences.
Yep, I agree, Coach. So moving right along, and we're almost done here, but can you please describe the most significant or important issue or difficulty that you recall having throughout your years in Carroll County?
As in a cultural, I'm kind of caught here.
Just anything personal or any important, maybe a challenge that you had to overcome, or...
Well, I think, life is a challenge. But that's why, there's a sense of community and family. Challenges in life are, family, health, as, life and death. And again, that's one of the neat things, I think, from the rural perspective, at least here in Westminster and Carroll County, from me growing up, is when there were tragedies, because there was that sense of community and closeness, the support system has always been there, the neighbors, which, again, I'm blessed that I have grown up in that type of community setting, and that's unfortunate for a lot of people now in this generation, as we lose a lot of the small town, or we lose the sense of neighborhoods even in the larger cities. They lose that support system during times of tragedy and in difficulty, and that's quite possibly when people then make the wrong decisions or don't have the support they need.
So would you say that sense of diminished support or unfamiliarity is one of the most significant changes here?
Well, I would say that that would be, I would say that would probably be one of them, as you lose the rural, feeling and that close sense of community. But again, it still boils down to, it's maybe not as easy, but it's still there, but you have to work for it.
Yeah.
It's there no matter what neighborhood, what town, what city, but again, with our busy lives, a lot of times we don't take the time for that to occur. It can still be there. I think most people want that, but it was much easier in a simpler, quieter, smaller setting for that to evolve.
Yeah, makes sense. And tell me, what do you perceive are the benefits, disadvantages, or both to urban development in Carroll County?
Well, the benefits, again, it's there is more chance for growth. There is more opportunity for diversity, for for education, for cultural growth. The pitfalls, again, I think there's less personal contact, more anonymity, and less, more people, but less actually, less human touch. which is ironic because there are more humans but less human interaction.
That's a good point. It's a great point. And what would you tell a friend who had never been to Carroll County about this community?
That it's a very welcoming, still grassroots community, a great place to raise your families, great education. If you like the outdoors, it's again a great place to be able to venture outside and I don't know. That's a tough question. It's a great question because I pride myself on being from Carroll County and all of its assets, but yet it's hard to put into words of why you would want somebody, or what their first perspective would be, or what would draw them to this place. I guess again, it's a sense of community.
If you could imagine that Carroll County had left behind any legacy, what do you think that would be?
Good people, neighborhoods, caring people, who care about them, their families, their friends, a nurturing feeling.
All good. And finally, is there anything that you would like to tell me that I haven't asked you?
Not really. Again, I think one of the things that I think is ironic, when I was a student at Western Maryland, one of the an institution of higher learning and education, many of my classmates came from outside of Carroll County, and the joke used to be, if you were a townie or from Carroll County, because it seemed to be so backwoodsy. But yet the irony is, many of those young people who graduated from here in years that followed may have started in the city, but when they were married, they brought their families and they moved to Carroll County. So I can't tell you how many of my friends who came from an urban setting, and it's not that they didn't like it, it's what they knew, but when it came time for them to kind of slow down, raise their families, ended up moving to Carroll County. Life has a sense of humor.
It does. I agree.
One of the things that is neat, and I'm not saying you miss it, that I loved about Westminster is you used to be able, and you still do, I still walk downtown, from the perspective of just to see what's happening, and also from fitness. I'd love to walk downtown because you can still see people that I know, people that own businesses, and my friends and relatives. We always joke about, I should be the mayor of Westminster because I know somebody. No matter where we go, I still know people. But that's one of the unique and neat things about Westminster. I don't like the anonymity. I like being able to go into a restaurant and somebody say, hey Coach, or hey Becky, how you doing? I like that, but that's my personality. That's my upbringing. That's my family. Again, connection was important.
Great.